The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
In Connecticut and Los Angeles, they are asking WWDD, what will Danny do? We don't know what Danny Hurley is going to do, but indications are he's going to tell us sometime today whether he's staying at Connecticut or going to the Los Angeles Lakers for a lot more money, I would assume, and a lot more pressure, although there's a lot of pressure in being a two-time defending champion. Boston Celtics very much in the driver's seat after taking care of business at home, winning the 2 games. They'll play Game 3 on Wednesday in Dallas. The Caitlin Clark controversy flaming up over the weekend. We'll get to that coming up. And it was 39 years ago today that the Coca-Cola Company went, yeah, that was a really bad idea. We're going back to the old Coke. Remember that? Remember that 1985 when they rolled out new Coke? I was really surprised how short the experiment was. They rolled it out April 23rd. On June 10th of 1985, they said, oh, yeah, that was a really bad mistake, and we're going to bring back the old Coke, although we're going to call it Classic Coke. And by the way, in the 39 years since, if you drink Coca-Cola, have you ever said, please give me a Classic Coke? No, because they did away with the new Coke, as far as I know. Now, you may be able to get your hands on some, but the old Coca-Cola, the tried and true, which goes back now almost 140 years, that still works. So it was a prime example of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We'll get to that. Also, it's off-season, sort of, for the NFL. We still have some mini camps to finish up. Commanders will wrap things up this week as they have a 3-day mandatory camp, which starts tomorrow. But, the league just dominates the conversation. And that's, really part of the reason that the Caitlin Clark controversy is what it is, because we're in sort of a down period for the NFL. But there's still NFL stuff to get to, and we'll do some of that later this hour. But we'll start with what happened last night in Boston. As the Celtics, when you look at their numbers, they didn't play very well. They didn't shoot well at all. They were 45% from the field, 25% from 3, and they shoot threes. They jacked up 39 of them, hit only 10. But they hit their free throws, and they did what they needed to do down the stretch against a Mavericks team, which had a golden opportunity to take advantage of a Boston team that didn't play well last night, and they couldn't do it. Luka Doncic had a huge first half, finished with very good numbers, 32 points, 11 assists. But what were we talking about going into the series? Oh, the new and improved, the rejuvenated Kyrie Irving, back to being one of the best players in the league, doesn't mind being Robin to Batman there with Luka Doncic. Well, in the 2 games, he hadn't given him much. He's 0 for 8 on threes in the 2 games, 0 for 3 last night. He was 7 of 18 from the field, finished with just 16 points. So when you combine the 2 numbers of the 2 stars, 48 points, that ought to be enough, and P.J. Washington contributed 17. But they just didn't have enough to stand up to what Boston was able to do, even with a night that their 2 stars were just okay. Tatum and Brown combining for 39 points. Brown was 8 of 15 from the field. Tatum just 6 of 22, but he had 12 assists. And who is he finding on those assists? Why, he was finding Jrue Holiday, who's already won a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks. And his numbers, spectacular last night. Played 40 minutes, missed only 3 shots, 11 of 14 from the field. He also had 11 rebounds and 3 assists, and he turned out to be the difference. This was Tim Legler with Scott Van Pelt last night, assessing what they got from Jrue Holiday in holding off the Mavericks in Game 2.
What stood out to me was the fact that he just took advantage of what was there on the drives, on the closeouts to the three-point line. Regular season game, maybe he's taking some of those contested threes. He understood. Dallas, and I disagree a little bit with what Doris and JJ were saying about Dallas's urgency defensively. I just didn't think Boston played particularly well offensively in this game. Jrue Holiday took advantage of some of these closeouts where he could now take the extra step, get to the paint, get to the rim. He made his first 9 shots in the paint. So on a night when neither team could really shoot the ball particularly well from the three-point line, Where are you going to grab those extra possessions? And Drew Holiday did that in attacking the gaps and attacking along the baseline, taking the extra step at the end around a shot blocker to get himself more on balance. So he shot something good at the rim. I just thought he played a really smart offensive game on a night when everybody was struggling to find the range from deep. Drew Holiday found another way to put the ball in the basket. If he doesn't do what he did in the first half, Scott, Dallas might be up 6-8 at halftime. And if that's the case, maybe it feels a little bit different to them coming out of the locker room.
Didn't it feel, though, at halftime, like you look at the score and you're like, that does not feel like the game we just watched?
I was saying to you guys in the room, I'm like, it felt like Dallas left so much out there.
Right.
Missed free throws. They couldn't make a three. And yet you felt like they were holding on for dear life.
Right.
And it was a matter of time before Boston was going to have a couple of runs. Eventually they had the one significant run to get the 15-point lead. And then Dallas, made it a little bit interesting there at the end. But you never really felt that Boston was in danger of losing that game.
We'll get to the touchscreen a little bit later. But just I could read out these numbers, and it's a make-miss league. We know that. It's cliche, but it's true. If Dallas doesn't make threes, they've been so good during the playoffs making them. And they made 6 in this one after they made 7 in game 1. That's been a big issue. But there's a bigger issue just in terms of what they're struggling to do in your estimation?
Yeah, they are. And it's the defensive breakdowns is what's been bothering them this entire time for both games. But I just thought there was too much tonight that was below standard for Dallas. It's not finals worthy. What it's going to take to beat this team. You've got to make threes from your role players, your bigs. Gafford played better later in the game, but for the most part, the 3 centers, Gafford, Lively, and Kleber, were completely ineffective offensively. They had some really bad turnovers of where guys were coming from behind against Luka when he wasn't aware that he was being chased down, led to some sloppy turnovers, including a really big one there in the backcourt at the end when it looked like they had a chance in the game. Holiday hits the 3 out of that. There's just too many areas in which they haven't been good enough against this team. The margin is so small against the Boston Celtics. I've seen Dallas at their best. This hasn't been close to it through 2 games.
Yeah, I think that's the key in this series, that Boston is so good that they can have a subpar performance and still win by 7, whereas Dallas has to be damn near perfect if they're going to win. Now, going home might make a difference, and things can change dramatically in these series, as we've seen in the playoffs. So they could play the next 2 in Dallas. Mavericks win both those, then we got a real finals going on. But if the Celtics play reasonably well in Game 3 and Dallas isn't at close to 100%, then I don't see that. I don't see that this really becomes a series, and I think it could even be a sweep. We'll see. Luka Doncic, yeah, he's got great numbers, but he's playing hurt, and you see them. I don't even know why they do this in front of everybody and put it on national TV. I think they do it in the locker room, or maybe just the timing of it they can't. But you saw him just before tip-off being wrapped up like a mummy. There's this ace bandage and the ice pack, and he's got some kind of a chest injury. And you see they've shown some footage of him walking into the arena in street clothes. He's walking like me, like an old guy. And that's not a really good sign. So he's not playing at 100%. He's giving him what he can, and he did have a good performance last night. But you got to have, it looks like to me, he's got to score 40-plus for them to win. They also have to hit free throws. I mean, what you learned at the YMCA about free throw shooting and how important it is, Dallas Mavericks lost this game by 7. You know how many free throws they missed last night? 8. They were 16 of 24 from the line, whereas Boston was 19 of 20. They only missed 1. One of them was missed by Jason Tatum, who didn't have the best night of his career, shooting 6 for 22 and 18 points, but a dozen assists, finding Drew Holiday as he was able to do, making up for the things he wasn't doing well by doing other things well. And that's what he and Scott Van Pelt talked about after the game on ESPN.
I'm looking at the box, and I've got 26% for you guys from 3. And you score 105. If I tell you that before the game, it might have seemed like it was a loss. What? You're smiling. How did you guys get a win in Game 2 with those numbers for you all, which are substandard?
I think if you look at it right in the first half, and really throughout the game, what kept us in it was our defense. All 5 guys who were in the game were on a string, locked in, communicating. And we didn't shoot the ball well at all, especially myself. And we just talked about it. When we came at halftime, we were still up 3. We felt like we should have been down 15 or 20. But, the way we were communicating and competing on the defensive end allowed ourselves to still be in the game and winning the game throughout.
I've described in the few minutes that we've been on talking about this game, I've used the word consummate professional to describe Jrue Holiday. A guy who doesn't care how many touches or shots he gets, just he's up for whatever is required. And on this night, 26 points from him. How do you describe, Jason, what he provides your team?
Just like a level of calmness, right? Obviously, he's been here before, and he's won a championship a few years ago, so he knows what it takes. And in the biggest moments, he can calm us down. He can do the things. He can make a winning play. The block that he had, obviously, he can score with the best of them when we need him to. He just makes plays all around, and we're very, very fortunate to have him on our team.
He was 6 of 7 on passes from you. I don't know, was there a focus off of what you were running to try to find him, or was it just sort of what was available in the moment?
They were packing the paint, a couple double teams and things like that. And we just kept making eye contact, and he was in a dunker. He was cutting. He was open for threes. So it was just making easy reads for me.
Jason, my entire career in sports TV, I've covered golf. And something that I found in major championships is that players find out they don't have to be perfect to win majors. Like Xander Schauffele won the last major. Was he perfect the entire week? No. But you find that my good enough is good enough. And what I'm getting at here as it relates to you is there a process where you're figuring out, I don't have to be a 40-point guy every night for us to win games. In other words, my good enough is good enough. Does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah. I would love to make some of those layups I missed and open threes. But, it's law of averages. It's going to figure itself out. I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and shooting the ball is the least of my worries, right? How can I dominate the game in other ways? When my scoring meets the level of my defense and rebounding and assists, it'll all be complete.
I guess maybe as a final thought, maybe a different way to say it is that part of the process of learning what it is to be on this stage is giving yourself a little bit of grace. Does that make sense, perhaps?
Yeah. It's tough in the world we live in. Everybody wants you to be perfect. But, just staying present in the moment, having tunnel vision and, really just locked in on what we're trying to do as a unit and trying to block out all the outside noise and, just continue to get one step closer to our goal.
And step number 3 is on Wednesday night when they go to Dallas. And that is not a great performance that they got from Jason Tatum overall last night, scoring, but doing the other things with the 9 rebounds and the 12 assists, making a big difference. Now, the question for Boston going into Game 3, will they have Kristaps Porzingis? He kind of worried about him in Game 1 when you think of Kevin Durant when he played in the finals with a sore calf and wound up tearing his Achilles. And there was some real fear about that with Porzingis. Well, he came off the bench in Game 1, and, man, he was a rocket ship. He was tremendous in that first quarter. And, again, he gave him a lift off the bench last night. He played, 23 minutes, I believe. Let me check the box here again. He had, 23 minutes, had 12 points and 4 assists, and also had a couple of rebounds as well. He had a couple of he missed his threes. That he wasn't quite the same. So he's 0 for 3 from 3. So he wasn't as good as he was in Game 1, but gives them a lift. Well, the calf apparently acted up. Now, how serious it is, we don't know. But he left in the fourth quarter. Al Horford had to finish up the game. And he, according to reports, was not limping when he went into the locker room. And he's supposed to get an MRI today. He is saying that he is going to play. He says, I'll die out there if we need, so I'm going to keep going. Well, the doctors may say, you go out there and you may, seriously injure yourself and damage your career. We don't think it's a good idea. I mean, we'll see how that goes. It is the NBA Finals. But here is full numbers: 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2 blocks in 23 minutes. So now not only is the importance there for Game 3 and getting his team another victory, as he's helped them to 2 of them, it's his first time back in Dallas since he was traded here to Washington in February of 2022. The Mavericks picked him up, or rather the Celtics picked him up last year in a 3-team trade with the Wizards. So there's that part of it, and he had some good years in Dallas, but like the bulk of his career, he was injured a lot, and that's one of the reasons he was available here. Can they survive without him? Probably so. You'd like to have him. And you don't want to be the other team besides the Golden State Warriors in the last 8 years that had the best record in the league and wound up losing in the finals. They don't want to do that, and it's very rare that you blow a 2-0 lead in the finals, but it happens, especially, we win the first 2 at home. Remember, Philadelphia did this against Portland. We're going back, 1977, but the Bill Walton team came back and won 4 straight. So it's not over yet, but I think what we're seeing is that the Boston roster is just better and deeper, and they don't necessarily have to play their best game to win, whereas Dallas is really, as Tim Legler said, just kind of hanging on there, and they lose by 7 last night. We'll see what happens in Game 3. One other thing on the finals and basketball in general, owners who sit courtside and taunt players from the other team should be hit with technical fouls. It should hurt their team. So last night, and this is just according to reports, it hasn't been confirmed. I wasn't there. I didn't see this, didn't hear this. But Wyc Grousbeck, who's one of the owners of the Celtics, was jawing at Luka Doncic as he was making a big run there in the third quarter. And apparently Doncic didn't like it. And according to multiple media members, Grousbeck taunted Doncic. Then on the next possession, the Mavs star hit a turnaround jumper and let Grousbeck have it as he went up the court. There's no place for that, and an owner has to behave himself. This is a relatively modern thing where the owner sits courtside. I don't remember this when, even like Red Auerbach, who was the GM, he didn't sit courtside when the Celtics and the Lakers had their battles. You didn't see Jerry Buss sitting courtside. It was Jack Nicholson and Diane Cannon and that celebrity group, but you didn't see that. Well, this is a new thing. Ted sits courtside. I know the Wizards are not going to be in the playoffs anytime soon, but he does it. And I guess the owner of the Celtics felt like he could do this and taunt the other team. Well, if you're going to do that, you got to be considered part of the team, and you got to get hit with the technical. Yeah, I mean that's your team. You're not playing, you're not coaching, but seems to me there should have been something done. I don't know how it went down. I don't know what Doncic said to him, what Grousbeck said to Doncic, but you can't have owners and players going at it during a game. You just can't have that, and the referee has to be able to police that. I think. That's what I would do. I would say I'd pass a league rule, and it's Adam Silver working for the owners. Understand that, but he's got to say to them, look, we can't let this get out of hand, because the next thing you know, you're gonna have an owner fighting with a player, and that's going to be a really bad look for the league. We have the first public comments from Stephen Strasburg since his retirement was announced. Barry Svrluga landing an interview with him, which landed on the front page of the Post over the weekend. I'll go through some of it. Some of it leaves you with more questions than answers as to where the relationship is between Strasburg and the team. No question about the relationship between Strasburg and the fans. He will forever be beloved for what he did in the World Series, as he was the MVP, pitching not only starting but in relief. But the truce, I want to call it, because it is sort of a truce. It's sort of an agreement that's not really that comfortable, it sounds like. We'll get to that more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We got a Tony show on this sunny Monday at 11 o'clock. We are awaiting Danny Hurley's decision, whether he's going to take the Lakers job or stay at Connecticut. I just saw this during the break, which makes this situation even more nuts. Mark Stein, who used to work for ESPN, I believe he went to work for the New York Times, and New York Times dropped the sports section, so now he's writing for Substack. And he says, I had been warned early on by one well-placed insider, for what it's worth, to stay ready in case former Villanova coach Jay Wright emerged as a stealth candidate. That backstory is sure to surface sooner rather than later, presumably soon after the Lakers do or don't land Hurley. As Stein alluded to, the Lakers' job seems to be Hurley's job to lose at this point, but should Danny Hurley opt to stay at Connecticut, and for whatever reason it doesn't work out with J.J. Wright, who would seem at this point to be a very secondary consolation prize for the Lakers, Jay Wright would be, he would be the new Pat Riley in Los Angeles, the way he is sartorial splendor. Not that, coaches wear suits anymore, but he just has that look, that command that would seem right, and he just would seem to be like a great L.A. fit. Now, we don't know what he's going to do because he's been asked about college jobs before, and I think he's been asked about the NBA as well, and he keeps saying, no, I'm really happy doing television. And he's good on television. He's really good. But that could be something that might draw him back. And again, it's one of those jobs. There's only a couple of them, really. It's the Lakers and the Celtics. They stand above all the others. So if it's the Lakers and Jay Wright wants to coach in the NBA, has any itch to scratch with that, he's done it all in college, winning a couple of national titles at Villanova. But if he wants to do that, that might be the place. And, if they don't get Danny Hurley, it would seem to me, just to me, that this would be greeted with more excitement in Los Angeles than J.J. Redick. That's just my feel. All right, we haven't heard much from Stephen Strasburg, if anything, since his retirement was announced in April. In fact, over the course of his career in Washington, which started in 2010, we didn't hear much from him anyway. He didn't like talking to the media. Occasionally he would do an interview, but he was a guy who guarded his privacy, liked his privacy to remain, and he was in and out, and Tony used to call him the orchid because it seemed like he had to have everything right when he was pitching. But he gave us the greatest shining moment in modern baseball history in this town. I wasn't around in 1924 when the Senators won their World Series, but for baseball in this city, in my lifetime, there was nothing greater than what Stephen Strasburg did in winning the MVP as the Nats won the World Series in 2019. And I am not going to have any regrets. Well, it's not my money, but as far as being a fan and seeing them give him $240 million and he being able to pitch only a few innings, 31 and a third innings across 8 starts since he got that contract. Hey, it is what it is. He delivered. He delivered a World Series championship. And had not spoken to anybody since the retirement was announced. And it was, head-scratching to see that they had a celebration of the World Series championship. I think it was in April, maybe in May. And he didn't show up for that, even though they had worked out his retirement in advance. I mean, that's the guy you want to see there. He was the MVP, didn't show up. So he did sit down with Barry Svrluga. They had lunch recently. He's moving his family back to San Diego, where he's from. He had always said that he wanted to stay here, raise his family here. When he signed the extension, it was a big part of being in this city that he liked being in. He was very comfortable here. But he's packing up and he's leaving. So before he left, he sat down with Barry and said a few things and talked about, his feelings about a career that showed unbelievable promise. June 8th, 2010, so we just celebrated the 14th anniversary of it Saturday, when he had that unbelievable performance in his first game where he struck out 14 against the Pirates, including the last 7 he faced. It was an incredibly hyped event, which outran the hype. And throughout his career, he was, I think he was underrated because of the fact that he was in and out with injuries so much. And here are the numbers. From that day, June 8th, 2010, when he made his debut, through the dominant 8 1/3 inning performance in Game 6 of the 2019 World Series, Strasburg appeared in 248 games for the Nats. His team won 158 of those games, including 7 of 9 in the postseason. Extrapolate that winning percentage over a 162-game season, it's a 103-win pace. That would be if you had 4 Strasburgs in your rotation, you would get to that number. But the point is, he was a great pitcher. Is he a Hall of Fame pitcher? No, he didn't pitch enough. But at his best, he was as good as many Hall of Fame pitchers. And he says to Barry, when you're dealing with a lot of emotions and inner turmoil to where it's like, I wouldn't really say I was beating myself up, but I didn't feel good about it. I feel like, I failed. I didn't accomplish what was asked of me. Well, what was asked of him was unrealistic, really, especially after the debut. I mean, we thought we were seeing the next, Nolan Ryan there, the next Roger Clemens pre-steroids. We thought he was going to be that good and could have been that good had he stayed healthy. More from the Barry story, and it's a big front page. I don't understand exactly how newspapers work. I mean, I don't know why you would put this on the front page of a Saturday paper where you don't really get the extra runoff and discussion on radio and TV that you would during the week, but they ran it Saturday in the paper. He said he didn't want to be a distraction when he was injured and not with the team, so they reached a compromise. And Strasburg reported daily to a physical therapy facility to treat an old ankle injury. He didn't really see the point, but if they want me to show up, I'll show up, he said. After a week or two, he was bracing his leg against a therapist's arm. This is as he was trying to make his comeback when it became pretty clear 2 years ago that it wasn't going to happen. He was at least, trying to get himself and try to play, okay? He says, after a week or two, he was bracing his leg against a therapist's arm, resistance exercises. One morning, he awoke with his neck locked up. He saw a doctor who advised him to see a specialist. And when he returned from that visit to Dallas to see the specialist, he heard a knock on his door. When he opened it, he found a team staffer who said he had been issued a letter signed by Mike Rizzo, the GM of the team who drafted Strasburg. It was an official document, Strasburg said. They basically said I was non-compliant with rehab. In other words, they wanted him to rehab with the team. He was doing it on his own, and he said he didn't want to be a distraction. And then he gets further injured or has further problems during the rehab, and then they're saying, well, he was non-compliant. So there's bad blood there. In July of 2023, so less than a year ago, Nationals held a news conference to announce the signing of first-round pick Dylan Cruz, and Mark Lerner, the team's principal owner, had occasion to chat with Rizzo and Scott Boras, who represents both Cruz and Strasburg. The conversation wound around to something like, hey, hey, Scott, how's Strauss? The answer, not good. He won't pitch again. And Lerner had a suggestion. Let's do right by him and hold a retirement ceremony. Around the same time, Strasburg discovered an additional incentive to retire. He came across information about an anti-aging clinic in Beverly Hills that offered treatment, including using human growth hormones to regenerate nerves. The problem, as an active player, he could no longer take HGH, which is on the banned substance list. So he said he asked the team, is it okay if I go out there and do a consultation? They said no problem. But even as preliminary plans were circulated internally for a September 9th, retirement. This was, again, remember this last September that they were going to have this big retirement for him. There were hurdles to clear. Strasburg couldn't say he was voluntarily retiring because that would mean he would forfeit the remainder of his salary. The Players Association doesn't want that to happen. The club knew all along that Strasburg would get the money they owed him, but the two sides could not work out a deal in time for a ceremony, and so it went away. And that was an embarrassing period where the word was out they were going to have the ceremony, and then they didn't have it, and then Mike Rizzo says, well, we expect him at spring training. In the end, as Barry writes, for Major League Baseball and the union, they helped the sides work out a deal in which some of Strasburg's remaining salary will be deferred. On April 6th, just over a week into the season, the Nationals' official transaction showed that Strasburg had retired. The next day, speaking about the player that they had made the first pick of the 2009 draft, Rizzo said of Strasburg, he's one of the Washington Immortals, the Mount Rushmore Nationals, one of the greatest players we've ever had. He was a guy who put us on the map. An agreement was in place, but all is still not well. And here's the important point. Though Strasburg freely talked about the timeline of events over the past few years, he kept some of his feelings guarded. I don't want my emotions involved, but on April 20th, when the Nats gathered to celebrate the World Series championship, he stayed home. So there's an agreement, there's deferred money, but he's leaving town and things aren't still great. So I'd like to see a time when Strasburg comes out to Nats Park. Maybe, I'll tell you, a good day to have it would be next June 8th of next year, which would be the 15th anniversary. And they could have a real, number retirement ceremony for him, the whole 9 yards. They haven't done that. So while things are seemingly okay, he's still very, very, very popular with the fan base, as he should be. All is not incredibly well with management. And so that's kind of where we stand with Strauss. But for me, as a sports fan who grew up in this town, went to games starting in 1966 with my dad and watched a lot of games on television, been to Nats Park a bunch of times. I'm fine with it. Whatever he could or could not do here, he gave us some great moments and was the MVP as they won the World Series. And there are cities where they have gone over a century, like Chicago with the Cubs, without a World Series. So it happened in my lifetime. He was a big part of it, and I will always have a warm place for Stephen Strasburg. All right, next hour, we'll deal more with the Caitlin Clark storm and what Christine Brennan reported over the weekend. Some of it is mind-blowing. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Oh, we got a big storm around Caitlin Clark being left off the Olympic team. Christine Brennan did the reporting on this for USA Today. It is absolutely mind-blowing, the reason that she says that Clark was left off, what her sources are telling her. We will get to that. Commanders get ready to open up their mandatory minicamp tomorrow. Austin Ekeler talking last week about his story of getting to the NFL as he talked to Keyshawn Johnson and what he thinks of Jayden Daniels, who we know doesn't throw out a very good first pitch. Threw out the first pitch yesterday at Nats Park and did not get it over the plate, but they're paying him to throw footballs and not baseballs, so nothing to worry about there. Everything is going to be fine. Though the sports radio business is so crazy, and I've been in it since the start. And by the way, we're less than a month away from the 37th anniversary of the start of sports radio at WFAN in New York, July 1st of 1987. There are some hosts, and I don't know if any of them around town might do this today, who say, well, he couldn't get the ball over the plate. Is there any concern about Jayden Daniels? Call us. You know, that could sustain you for a while if you're really hard up for things to talk about. But yeah, he obviously spent his time growing up throwing footballs, not baseballs. Probably didn't play baseball at any point, or maybe just Little League. Who knows? But he looks, from what I've seen, very, very good at throwing the ball, and he's going to be doing that the next 3 days at what used to be Redskins Park. I guess they just call it Ashburn now, Commanders Park. It's Commanders Field, though they haven't taken down the FedEx logo there. A lot to do and a lot to catch up on with new ownership, and we'll get to that. I just wanted to spend a little time on the Caitlin Clark story, which really flared up over the weekend when Christine Brennan of USA Today reported that she was going to be left off the Olympic team. And that in itself seems insane, right? I mean, she is the face of women's basketball. There's no question about it. They drew 18 million people to watch the women's final in college basketball. They drew 14 for the men because there's no comp in men's basketball. She is Larry Bird and Magic Johnson rolled into one in a sport that has drawn flies. And the television ratings have been great. And, you know, rising tide lifts all boats. She has brought a lot of attention to the league, the WNBA. The players are now riding on private jets as opposed to flying commercial, thanks to her. She's probably 90% of the reason for that. The television ratings have like tripled in games that she plays in. She played here over the weekend, Friday night. And the Mystics normally play their games in Southeast, where the arena holds like 4,000. They sold it out. They had 20,000 people there. Tickets were selling on the secondary market for $300. It's Caitlin Clark. Now, the Olympics are not about drawing fans. I understand that. But NBC pays a lot of money. It's a very big television show. And the ratings that she would bring would be enormous if she were playing. And you know, I mean, she's be the youngest player. She's 22, and the next, I guess, the youngest player that made the team is 26. But come on here. So Christine yesterday was on CNN discussing the story that she reported over the weekend, and this was the most mind-blowing part, as she talked about, that why Team USA decided to leave her off the team, according to Christine's sources.
Impeccable sources who said that they had heard from various people that a concern was that if Caitlin was put on the team but only got a few minutes of playing time, which would be logical for a rookie on a great team that last lost in 1992, best, most dominant team in sports, what U.S. women's basketball team hasn't lost since 92. If she only got a little playing time, that all of her fans would be upset and would be, I guess, just storming the gates and on radio shows and on social media. I couldn't believe my ears that was a discussion topic in the meetings about the reaction to Caitlin Clark. So I'm working on that. I'm trying to get that pinned down, but those two sources are impeccable. And I'm trying to figure out what was going on. And is it a situation where we heard chilly comments, Dawn, from, as we talked about, Diana Taurasi and Brianna Stewart at the women's Final Four? I asked Diana Taurasi's agent point blank, can you point me to anything positive she's ever said about Caitlin Clark? Never heard back, gave the agent a week to reply. And both of those women are on the team. I'm not saying that anyone in particular is doing this, but as a journalist, it is my job to try to figure out what happened. This is a huge decision. It will continue to reverberate all the way to Paris. And as a journalist, as I said, I want to see what's going on. And could it be that jealousy, rancor, anger towards Caitlin Clark and all the money she's made, and obviously a white woman in a sport that is dominated by black women? Who knows? Something potentially is going on, and I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it.
So there is a range of opinions on this, and I suppose the beauty of this story is that everybody does have an opinion. So I'd like to read you a few thoughts from Jamel Hill. She's a contributing writer for The Atlantic. She said, quote, "People need to stop panicking and putting so much weight on every single decision. The WNBA is going to have Caitlin Clark for a long time. The league isn't going to fall off a cliff if she's not on the team. And every single decision can't be about placating the optics of a round one player." She went on, "Honestly, Caitlin Clark not being on this year's Olympics team is a good thing for her. In the span of a few weeks, she went from playing college ball to becoming a professional to having a grind of a schedule. A multi-week break probably isn't the worst thing in the world. She will eventually make an Olympic team." Christine, what do you think of that perspective?
Jamel is a good friend, and I really respect her, and we've known each other for years. Obviously, the decision to take time off or not, which Caitlin will now have because she has that 4-week break, 3-4-week break, that's her decision to make. That's not USA Basketball's. USA Basketball could have put her on the team, and she said, "No, I'm tired." It would never have happened, Don, but that's her call. So that's not what USA Basketball was deciding, obviously. And the bigger question and issue, I've covered the Olympics since 1984, and Jamel's been to one or two, but we know the power and the platform of the Olympic Games is unlike anything else in the world. Why did the NHL stop playing for all these various Olympics, literally shut down its season to have all of its pros at the Winter Olympics? Why is the WNBA completely shuttering, so that its 12 players can go and play in the Olympics? It's because of the forum and the opportunity to grow the game. The Dream Team, the men's Dream Team, 1992 Barcelona, changed the face of basketball around the world. Caitlin Clark is the one person who could have done that, put USA and number 22 on an Olympic basketball court, and the eyeballs would have been as extraordinary, the record-setting TV ratings, just like they've been both in college and now pro. She is a magnet for all the headlines, all the attention, and would have then, so many of her teammates would have gotten the attention that they deserve. They're usually ignored at the Olympics. I've covered it. It's tumbleweeds in the press tribune. You would have had everyone coming to watch those other players and give them their due as well. And all of this is an opportunity that's completely missed by this decision.
Amen. I agree 100% with what she says. And again, she says that the reason that she's heard from two impeccable sources, who tell her that one of the main reasons that she was left off the team is that she was going to get limited minutes, and that would be a problem for the fans. Who makes this decision? That's insanity. And she's a shooter. Even star shooters in the NBA get limited minutes. Robert Horry, big shot Bob, won 7 titles with 3 teams, was playing like 12 to 15 minutes a game. And so what? She's going to get limited minutes. She's on the team, and that's why people will watch. And there are some stars here, some great, great players. Brittany Griner is supposedly on the team. They're not supposed to even announce this until tomorrow for whatever reason. Diana Taurasi, who may be the best player who's ever played, but her attention, was limited until until this woman comes along from Iowa who shoots from the logo. It's just crazy. Now, to Caitlin Clark's credit, she has handled this as well as you possibly can. And this was before a practice yesterday that the Indiana Fever had, where she was, again, surrounded by reporters wanting, of course, reaction to this.
Caitlin, what was your reaction when you saw the USA team yesterday, the roster come out?
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the girls that are on the team. I know it's the most competitive team in the world, and I know it could have gone either way, of me being on the team, me not being on the team. So, I'm excited for them. I'm going to be rooting them on to win gold. I was a kid that grew up watching the Olympics, so it'll be fun to watch them.
What was your level of disappointment not hearing your name on the roster?
Honestly, no disappointment. Like, I think it just gives you something to work for. That's a dream. Hopefully one day I can be there, and I think it's just a little more motivation. You remember that, and hopefully in 4 years, when 4 years comes back around, I can be there.
Did you have a direct conversation with managing director or whoever's over there at USAB recently?
Yeah, they called me and let me know, and before everything came out, which was really respectful of them, and I appreciated that. And they did the same for every girl that made the team or every girl that didn't make the team. There's a lot of players in the Olympic pool, so it wasn't like I was the only one they had to call. They had to make quite a few calls.
Are you looking forward to a break? From Olympic action, basketball in general, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be really nice. I mean, I've loved competing every single second, but it's going to be a great month for my body to, first of all, get rest and get healthy and just get a little time away from basketball and the craziness of everything that's been going on, and, just find some peace and quiet for myself. But then additionally, a great opportunity for us to work and get better, a great opportunity for myself to get in the weight room, to work on the court and work at things that I want to get better at that I maybe didn't have time going from college to the pro season. So I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, we still have a month of games where we have a lot of opportunities to win a lot of games. So that's where my main focus is.
Yeah, they're playing tonight. They're playing at Connecticut. It's on NBA TV. Just the numbers, the people that show up. They sold out Capital One Arena for her. She played, I guess, another game yesterday. In the games that she played this weekend, average attendance 17,000. The average attendance for the rest of the league was 7,000. So 10,000 more people on average showed up to watch. More than twice as many people watching her games than are watching the others. Is that a reason to have her on the team? No, maybe not. But you're trying to grow the game, trying to grow the sport. And is she going to be a hindrance on the team? Is she going to keep somebody off the team who definitely should be on it? Maybe. But, this is the way it works. If you're the last person, not last man, but last person on the team, you're going to be vulnerable to these kind of decisions. This is life. And the Olympics, for better or for worse, are a television show. That's what they are. That's what props it up year after year. It's television, and the NBC executives have to be livid over this. This is more from Clark, and at the end, she addresses something that could really be a hot button if it happens. Listen to this. This is more from Caitlin Clark and her conversation with reporters yesterday after it was revealed Saturday that she was being left off the Olympic team. A
lot of my focus was on my college season. I didn't have time to go to a training camp, and then obviously it was a quick turnaround to come here. So. I think it's just a good motivation for us, and then we all know how talented that team is. You look at that roster, and a lot of players I've already had the opportunity to play in this league that are just so good, and I know they're going to go out there and dominate, and I'm going to be watching and cheering for them. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Have you heard from anyone that stood out from you about that decision? Meaning an NBA player or anything or someone you're close? No. Okay.
We're talking in a lot of ifs here. I know you just said you would like that rest, but if there is a player on that roster that's too injured to play and they call you, what would your reaction be?
Yeah, I think it would be a great opportunity. A lot of ifs. So, my main focus is on the Fever. That's what it is. If USA Basketball needs something, I have a great relationship with them. But the 12 they have selected are really, really great players. So I think they're in pretty good hands. A great coach, Cheryl's a great coach. Selection committee did a really good job. So, just focused on the Fever and what we can do to be better.
Okay. So what happens if one of the players is injured, can't play, and they take somebody else and they don't take Caitlin Clark? Or does USA Basketball learn from this and say, wait a minute, we really screwed up, and look at the reaction. So we definitely have to take her on the team? And then if she's taken on the team, is she looked at, because this has got to be a factor here. You've already had two of the star players, Breanna Stewart and Diana Taurasi, say that she was going to be in for a rude awakening when she got to the WNBA, and that has been the case. You've seen her knocked to the ground. She's playing, she's not playing bad at all. She had 30 points here the other night. Granted, the Mystics stink, but she's, through 12 games, she's averaging 16.8 points, 6.3 assists, 5.3 rebounds. Those are great numbers. She's the best rookie in the league, I think. You maybe can make a case for somebody else, but she's got to be in the conversation. And the fact that they've left her off now, and then if they have an injury, and if they keep her off again, don't choose her as the first player to call once they have an injury. Now, I don't know exactly how this works, because I know that Grant Hill is like the grand poobah for the men. I guess the women have another leader. That hasn't been reported as at least that I've seen. But this would be something, if I were Grant Hill and if I had complete control over USA Basketball, and I don't know if he does. I think he's just more in the role for the men. But I would say, whoa, wait a minute here. We need to have this. This might not be apples to apples, but when the Dream Team was selected in 1992, there was a big controversy about Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah was left off the team, and it has been reported, though Michael Jordan has denied it in The Last Dance, but his belief was that Jordan didn't want him, because when he played in an early All-Star game, Isaiah made the decision to freeze him out. Like, he don't get the ball to Jordan. So, Jordan likes revenge, and so he may have told them, if Isaiah's in, I'm out. So if you're choosing between the two, you're taking Jordan. But they took Larry Bird. Larry Bird, his back was in such bad shape in 92 that his NBA career had already ended. He played only 46 minutes that entire season, and his back was so bad he couldn't even sit on the bench when he wasn't playing. He had to lie down flat. And he at that point one of the 12 best players in the United States? No, he wasn't. He was at his peak, was one of the 5 or 10 best of all time for sure. But at that point he was not. And they also took Christian Laettner. And in those days they had a rule that you had to take at least one college player. So Laettner was chosen. Now there's revisionist history. Oh, there was a big controversy of whether it should have been Laettner or Shaq. No, I don't remember that. I don't think there was much about Shaq. And Laettner had just won back-to-back national championships. He was a winner. He was a great, great college player. Didn't live up to that promise in the pros. But I don't believe there's any problem with taking Christian Laettner on the Dream Team over Shaq. So, as we look at this here, this is different in that she is the face of the league. She is the most important person, as evidenced by attendance and television ratings, which triple when she plays. And I'll be interested to see NBA TV tonight what kind of number they're going to get when she plays a good team in Connecticut. They were finally knocked off this weekend by New York. They had been undefeated through their first 10 or 11 games, something like that. So there you go. It continues to swirl, and we'll continue to follow the reaction. Meantime, Commanders get ready for the start of mandatory minicamp tomorrow. Austin Ekeler, of course, will be there. Talk to Keyshawn Johnson about his story, about how he arrived in the NFL as an overlooked player, a 0-star recruit coming out of high school, and how his career has developed, plus his thoughts on Jayden Daniels. That and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We got Tony coming up at 11. Before we get to the Austin Ekeler interview on the podcast that Keyshawn Johnson does called All Facts, No Breaks, we've run some stuff that he's done before. This is a story that maybe is more common in the business world than I'm familiar with, but it seems very strange. There is a website called capfriendly.com. It's a place where fans can look at, salary cap moves and things like that. I'm not enough of a hockey geek to have ever gone to it, but the latest is that the Capitals are going to buy this and essentially turn it off for everybody else. Like, they want to own it. According to Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet, the Capitals' purchase of the website, which again is called capfriendly.com, won't be finalized until next month, as both sides stress the importance of keeping it functional during the 2024 NHL draft and the onset of the league's free agency period. The draft is June 28th to 29th. Free agency opens up July 1st. According to the report, various teams across the league received notice that their contracted agreement with Cap Friendly was due to be terminated, an indication that the site had been purchased by one of the teams. Once the purchase is made official, it's expected that Washington will bring the site offline, preventing other teams from utilizing its extensive fan base. Friedman reports that that could happen as early as July 5th. So, in other words, this is a site that teams have used to help them with player contracts, salaries, things like that, and that the Capitals are going to own it and not make it available for anybody else. Now, I imagine the originators have a contract that they can't restart it and call it something else, but somebody will do this. I mean, if it's successful and it's successful enough to buy, wouldn't somebody else start something similar? I don't quite understand this. Now, whoever runs it, I guess, is going to work for Ted, and I can just see Ted strutting around, saying how much smarter he was than everybody else because they now own this site and nobody else has access to it. But it just seems like, it's like you make Hershey bars, and okay, somebody can make Hershey or chocolate bars and call them Nestle. I don't know. Speaking of that, we'll get to the disaster that was New Coke coming up in about 20 minutes. Meantime, more NFL yak as the Commanders will open up minicamp tomorrow, 3-day minicamp, and then shut everything down until they open training camp in late July. Austin Ekeler, part of the free agent haul that was done in March. He spent 7 years, all 7 years of his NFL career with the Chargers, and he's a hell of a story. He grew up on a cattle ranch in Colorado, a very, very desolate area, not a lot of population, and went pretty much unnoticed. Went to Western State College in Colorado, where he didn't even get a full scholarship. Played 4 years, and then managed to get into the NFL as an undrafted free agent with the then San Diego Chargers, and Phillip Rivers was the quarterback. That's how far back it goes. He's 29 years old, a little old for a running back, but still producing. Just 2 years ago, he had close to 1,000 yards, and the year before that had also close to 1,000. He's been a very good, productive back, and really a smart guy when you listen to him, and a guy who sometimes these guys succeed because of the struggle that they had to go through, that chip on the shoulder, the Tom Brady chip. I'm not comparing him with Brady, but he's a guy that, again, no offers out of high school, no drafting in the NFL, and he makes it and sticks now for 7 years going into year 8 with a new free agent contract from Washington. And as he talked to Keyshawn Johnson, he told his story about coming from really nowhere in the middle of Colorado, knowing he didn't want to be a rancher for the rest of his life. He wanted something else, and the burning desire to do it, and the fact that nobody offered him a scholarship coming out of high school, and how he viewed it.
It wasn't really frustrating. And it goes back to the high school, because in my high school, super, super small high school, one stoplight town. And so if you're in that environment, what do you got to do? Like, you better absolutely dominate if you want to get noticed. So guess what I did? My senior year, 2,300 yards. I'm averaging 10 yards a carry, 43 touchdowns, like 5-6 touchdowns every single game. Absolutely dominating. And then, there was no one really from my school that was getting recruited to any other D1s. And so for me, it was just kind of like, I guess, we're just not that, recruitable here. And so I ended up at a Division II school. But for me, it was the transferable things I actually just talked about, with my work ethic at home that I was building up, that I applied to football. I left the day I graduated. I told you I was trying to get out of there. I 17 years old, had my truck packed, went to graduation, threw my hat in the air, hugged mom, love you. I went and got a job up at college and started paying my rent and started working out with the team. I'm like, this is my next thing. Football, and my education are going to be my next opportunity. And so I immersed myself into both of those, because I didn't know what to expect. Wasn't ever thinking about the NFL. I grew up watching bass fishing and bull riding. I wouldn't talk about no damn NFL out there. Like, what is that? We'd watch the Super Bowl every once in a while. But for me, it was, okay, I'm going to use football to pay for my education. I had like a half ride and scholarship. There's no full rides in my Division II. So it was use football to get into some type of business degree and get into the business world. And I was able to do that well enough where after my junior year was still dominating, freshman of the year, All-American, academic All-American, took everything so seriously. My college head coach comes to me, he's like, hey, You might have an opportunity to get some scouts reaching out to you. Mind you, not one player from my school has ever gone to the NFL. So I've never seen a scout. I don't know what these people look like. They're a figment of my imagination. I don't know what a damn scout looks like. Who do they talk to? What do they talk about? What do they want to know? And so I'm at Western, go through my 4 years there, continue to dominate, get a job offer from an oil and gas company. I'm going to jump into the business world, but I put the brakes on that because I had a bunch of teams come out my senior year and watch me practice. And I was like, okay, that actually might be a real opportunity. And so then I started immersing myself a little bit more into the football side.
And so then when you looked at it, once that year is over at Western, you didn't get invited to the combine. You didn't, you just kind of
none of that.
One of the situations where it's like, okay, here we go all over again. But how did you stay the course without getting? Because I probably would have got mad. I mean, I obviously didn't have to go through that situation, but I probably would have just said, you know what, man, I ain't got time for these people. Right.
So for me, it was, look, I don't know where my journey is going to go, but I do know I'm getting out of where I was. Right. I'm not where I was before. And that's what I'm looking for. I want something new, something I can start building. And when the NFL opportunity came and there was schools coming to watch me practice, that became really real for me. And just like I left the day I graduated and threw my hat up in the air, the day we finished our fall semester, I was like, okay, if this is a real thing, I'm putting every ounce of my energy into this thing. There is not one part of me that's not going in to try to take advantage of this opportunity, because this is not just to go play football. I'm not just out here playing football. This is my entire life has changed, my trajectory of my family, my finances, my social status, my networking. Like, I'm business minded. I'm like, I can build off of this. And so I dropped out before my spring semester and I went to Denver, Colorado, and I was just training. I was just training. I love the weight room. I'm always in the weight room. I have like this, persona of like pound for pound, like really strong. I'm insanely strong because I just live in the weight room. That's my therapy there. So I go and start working out and training with some of these pro day guys. And I'm stronger than all of these guys. I run with the small guys, but lift with the big guys. And I'm like, okay, like I can size myself up. That was the first time I really got around any Division I talent that was being recruited. And so then I was like, okay, like there is an opportunity for me. I can see it here. Ended up getting undrafted, signed by the Chargers, and it was the same mentality when I got there. It was, I'm putting every ounce of earth into me, and I treated it like it was life or death. I was like, my life depends on this opportunity. You have to make it work. There's no chance that you cannot make it work. And when you put yourself in that mindset and you put in life or death, you go about things differently. You have a different intensity that you bring to it. I remember being stressed out of my damn mind. I remember just crying because I'm like, I'm trying, like I'm putting everything into it. I'm not moving up the depth chart. I'm talking to my coach, like, bro, like, what do I got to do? I'm on my assignment. I'm doing the right thing. And actually, it was my coach that was my running back coach. Now was my head coach. And it was this thing where, hey, we have guys that were paid. These guys need to get more reps. They're going to get more reps. I was 6th string on the depth chart. You know how many 6th stringers make this, the team, it is 0. I'm getting 1-2 reps of practice. I might get some scout team reps out there. Those were my reps. When it was time to go full speed scout team, I was unstoppable. And that was my mind. And that's how I got noticed. So my head coach comes into a special teams meeting one time, and he looks at the scout team. He's like, who's number 3 out there? Because I'm hauling ass down the field. No one's stopping me. It's punt drill. I'm going to make a damn tackle. I've never tackled a man in my life. I've always played running back. But guess what? I'm running down on punt now. And so that was where I started to separate myself, because my intensity that I brought to football was everything. And it continued to compound. And still to this day, until that day, I guess, I never moved up the depth chart at all during all of my training camp. I was 6th string to the day I made the team. But every time I got an opportunity, I wasn't going crazy, but I did my job. I would make a few splash plays here and there, but that was what got me noticed. It was like, oh, this guy can contribute and we can work with this. So that was my story, and I kept that same energy, till this day, as you can tell.
That's Austin Ekeler, part of the free agent haul from March, coming over from the Chargers after spending 7 years there, talking to Keyshawn Johnson on his podcast. And I think this is probably the main reason that he's here, is that Anthony Lynn they call him the running backs coordinator, I believe. He's part of the offensive staff, has been obviously a head coach before, coached Ekeler. And, again, the reason that he came here, but here's where Ekeler explains what he has learned from Anthony Lynn throughout his 7-year career.
my entire NFL philosophy has been built off of what he is. Like he taught me all of my stuff that I know about the NFL and the 5-step rhythm and reading this, and this is the aiming point, and this is the footwork we use, and this is what we call it, and this is how we align, this is what we do, the fundamentals of how we were going to block and stuff. Like he was the one implementing that when I was a rookie. And so it just meshed so well with where I'm at right now, where it's like, let's get back to where I'm at. It was funny because we brought in a coach from Iowa last year, Derek Foster, who's now with the Saints as a running back coach. And I was teaching him what Anthony Lynn was teaching me and sharing those philosophies back and forth. And so I just know Anthony's so respected when it comes to the running back position and the run game stuff. And so it's like, it's a nice moment to really get back to where, hey, it all started. Because I know he's going to put the players that are in the room in the best position. Like he likes a committee. He likes to put players in a space where this is your type of play based off of your skill set. This is why we want you on the field. Here's your plays. And so I can appreciate that. And that's how I got started with Phillip, right? Where it's like, hey, third down, Phillip's not a mobile guy. Austin, you're really good catching the ball at backfield. We're gonna get you in the game right now. And that's, hey, putting me in a position. Guess what? I had success through that. And so that's what I look for in a coach. Get me in the position where I'm going to be best on the field.
Phillip Rivers, who was the quarterback the first few years that Ekeler played with the Chargers, and Anthony Lynn, the head coach then, and now with the Commanders as a running backs coordinator, assistant coach, part of the offensive staff that they'll be working with this season. Last thing is the quarterback, and everybody who plays for the Commanders associated with the Commanders. Well, what about Jayden Daniels? What do you think of Jayden Daniels? Ekeler actually has a little bit some experience here in that he played with a rookie quarterback with the Chargers and last few years, or a rookie quarterback coming in Justin Herbert, and now he's making that transition with Daniels, and these are his observations of what he's seen so far in the offseason workouts.
It really depends on kind of the personality of the guy you're bringing in, of whether how much help they need. And for us, we got a lot of veterans around him. You know, we brought in a veteran center from Dallas. We got me. We got Zach Ertz. We got guys around him that know what they're doing. We got, just running a few O-linemen actually, a few receivers too. So it's like we're in a situation where we got veterans around this young guy. Like we are putting him in a position where, hey, you can immerse yourself into this position, this leadership role as much as you want. And it kind of comes down to what your personality is like. And what I've seen so far, literally even yesterday coming off the field, I was running a man beater choice route out of the backfield. And, we both saw it kind of a different way. He calls me over, hey, Austin, come over here. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I want to hear from my quarterback, right? Because I remember being with Phillip, I remember being with Justin, after he got going a few years, where it's like we had that conversation. For him to be doing it already in week 3, like, that's what I want to see from you as a quarterback. Hey, this is how I saw it. Maybe you should cut him right here. And I was like, well, I saw the safety coming down. I thought he was going to plug. So I just sat there and I was being decisive for you to give you a spot to throw. And so having those types of conversations, he's initiating that. That's why, yes, you need to be a leader. You can't be scared to go talk to us. You got to feel it. Because I know I've been playing this will be 8 years. You're coming in the league. You got to understand that I'm looking to you. What are you doing? You're the one with the ball in your hands. You're the one that's got to, throw it out here to slice up all these defenses. So that's what I'm looking for him. I want him to be a leader, which he's been doing it, and he's been understanding the offense, which, that's what's expected from these quarterbacks coming in. So now it's just, hey, can you go out there and then can we get it done on game days and continue to ball out? Can you be comfortable in that? And protect yourself, damn it, because, hey, this ain't college, man. These guys are big out there. You can't be taking those hits anymore.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very big for his rookie year. Can he protect himself over a 17-game schedule? That's going to be huge. I would imagine maybe tomorrow or certainly the next day that there'll be a lengthy news conference with Daniels, as that'll be the last time that he'll be made available to the media before training camp gets underway in late July. But that's Austin Ekeler a couple of days ago on a podcast that Keyshawn Johnson does called All Facts, No Breaks. He actually has – it's weird. He has his son on there for whatever reason. Maybe he's trying to get him started in the business. But Keyshawn can certainly do an interview. I don't quite understand what that is. But they did about a half an hour. If you want to see the whole thing, it's up on YouTube. All right, Tony's coming up next. I will have a show tomorrow, including a mini camp preview and more at 9 a.m. We'll see you then.